We are continuing to study Proverbs chapter 8. In the last video, we reached verses 15 and 16, and I mentioned that these are very, very important verses because these focus attention, in particular, on the wisdom that guides political rulers. This is such an important question. What makes a good ruler? This coming November, we have a presidential election. We're going to make some very important decisions about the leaders, the future leaders of this nation. What should we look for? There's all kinds of related questions associated with that. For example, what should be the role of the government? With the international pandemic, government leaders at all levels of government throughout the world, federal level, state level, local level, they're making some very, very important decisions that affect regular people at every level of life. And lots of questions are being raised about whether or not some of these government leaders are overstepping their role. Lots of Christians are interested to be able to answer that question. A related question is, how should Christians relate to the government? Now, we're not going to answer either of these questions comprehensively. What I really want to try to do is see what Proverbs has to say about what makes a good ruler, and the book of Proverbs has a lot to say about this question. That shouldn't surprise us, because if we remember, the primary author of the book of Proverbs was King Solomon. Solomon was not a prophet. Solomon was not a priest. Solomon was a king. Do you remember that God came to Solomon and said to him, "Ask whatever you wish"? If God came to you and said, "Ask whatever you want," what would you ask for? Do you remember what Solomon asked for? Here's his prayer. Verse 10, "Give me now wisdom and knowledge." That's what he asked for. Is that what you would ask for? Do you ask God to give you wisdom? James chapter 1, verse 5. Why did Solomon ask for wisdom? He tells us, "Who can govern this people of yours, which is so great?" Solomon knew instinctively that the one great need that he had to be a good king was to have the wisdom of God. Now that leads us to our first point. I only want to make one point in this first video. What makes a good ruler? Well, point number one is that a good ruler governs with wisdom. That's sort of the obvious point, but it's the main point that Proverbs makes, and it's very significant. That's the main point in verses 15 and 16 of chapter 8. We're talking here about wisdom. By me, kings reign, and rulers decree what is just. By me, princes rule, and nobles, all who govern justly. What makes a good ruler? A good ruler governs with wisdom. Chapter 16, verse 10, "An oracle is on the lips of a king. His mouth does not sin in judgment." This word oracle is often used to describe witchcraft and sorcery. The idea is that a king somehow has prophetic insight into the mysteries of God. He can think deeper, he can study deeper, he can penetrate deeper into the mysteries of God compared to ordinary people. And we should point out, this is not talking here necessarily about every single political ruler in the world. It's talking about a good ruler. This is what ought to characterize good political rulers, good kings. Let's just end with two more Proverbs in chapter 25. Look at this amazing pair of Proverbs. Verse 2, "It is the glory of God to conceal things, but the glory of kings is to search things out. As the heavens for height and the earth for depth, so the heart of kings is unsearchable." Notice, first of all, the connection here, the parallel between the glory of God and the glory of kings. This almost seems blasphemous, that somehow there's a connection between the glory of God and the glory of kings. Now, this parallel is by way of contrast, isn't it? The glory of God is to conceal things. The secret things belong to God. But the glory of kings is to search things out. What makes a king glorious? It's his ability to penetrate deeply and profoundly into the issues of life, to see things as they really are. There is one thing, though, that is unsearchable, something that's too deep to be searched out, and that's the heart of kings. As the heavens for height and the earth for depth, so the heart of kings is unsearchable. Look at the way that these verses describe a good king, that they have a profound wisdom and insight into the issues of life if they govern in the fear of God.